All right, and we are live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. It is Monday. I was going to try to add that up in my head really quick, and it did not work out. We're close. We're less than 2 weeks away from football. What are we?
10 days.
10 days. Thank you.
Days.
It's been
September
a
10th.
long couple days for me, a long weekend. But we're almost to a 3-day weekend, which I cannot wait for. Got Dennis and Matt here with me as well as always. How are we doing today, gentlemen?
Better than Jaguars fans.
Yeah, I've had about 3 hours of sleep, and I if I start rambling incoherently, think nothing of it.
Yeah. Gotta love it though. You just gotta get used to it. That's I shouldn't say 3 hours. I usually get roughly 5, and I'm living a good life, but this lately has just been I don't know what's going on, man, but life lately has been kicking my ass.
You know, I learned an important lesson last night when your wife tells you can watch whatever you want, and whatever you choose to put on is Peyton Manning episodes of Details breaking down game film. There's a limit to that. You can watch whatever you want.
Yeah, as I say, so when she tells you can watch whatever you want, it's whatever you want to watch as long as it's what she wants to watch is what I'm hearing. Kind of like it's like, hey, let's go out to eat. What do you want to eat? And then you're like, let's go to this. No, I don't want that. How about this? No, I don't want that. Okay, so what do you want to eat? Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to.
I'm going to plead the fifth on that one, Matt.
That's because your wife is the only one that actually watches these. That's why me and Matt don't have to worry about that. So
Lindsay doesn't mind football; it puts her to sleep. But apparently, it was the statistical breakdown of Baker Mayfield that she didn't really care that much for.
Ooh. Now that you say that, I have not watched that episode. I might go in and do that today since I've got nothing else to do. I just started watching the. I promise we'll get right back on subject here, but I just started watching the Umbrella Academy. I'd never watched it.
Oh. And
so it's been good so far. I've enjoyed it. I'm trying to get that. I know you're not a fan of this next show, but I'm trying to get that done because my wife is waiting to watch season 2, and I've been the piece of crap that has still not watched season 1. So she wants to watch it together. And then obviously The Boys comes out this weekend, which is a show we both like as well that I'm hoping to get into or finish watching season 2 of once it drops. So that is on the agenda. But for today's show, we are talking NFL news and notes. There's been a couple things that have happened since we've last recorded, and then we're going to talk about all of our award winners and things of that such. So I guess the big news we'll start with right off the bat. Leonard Fournette was cut earlier today by the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's funny. I see some people saying, I think it's funny that some people are saying, hey, you should have expected it. I don't know if we expected him to be cut, but it did seem like Jacksonville was not necessarily happy with Leonard Fournette for the past year or so. What does this do for you guys I guess let's start with Leonard Fournette and his value. We know there's a lot of rumors going on right now that Washington is looking into him. I believe they're the second best claim on him. Nobody's expecting Cincinnati to do it, who has the first claim. So a lot of people are expecting Washington to claim him. Do you think he goes to Washington? And if not, where is kind of his overall value for you right now, especially in a dynasty league if you own him?
Well, I'm sitting at a hold because you're getting crap offers for him, third and fourth rounders. The talk was out there that they could cut him or that it was a consideration. But I feel like he was the better back there. Does it save him some money? I suppose. He had a lot of trouble with Tom Coughlin, and Coughlin's gone now, right?
Yeah.
So, they weren't going to re-sign him. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. They weren't going to re-sign him. So I suppose there's something about taking a look at the guys you have and tanking. Where does he go? I like the fit in Washington. I heard who was on before Howard Bender on Sirius XM. I forget what show it was before. I told you because I'm tired. But they were talking about him maybe being interested in going to New Orleans because you've got the last 3 days, Kamara's been unexcused. Fournette's from LSU. They're both going to be free agents next year, so maybe he wants to go home. I don't know. He could go. he'd be the best back in Chicago. He'd be the best back in Miami. He'd be the best back in New England. He'd be the best back in Washington. Are any of them viable? I don't know. I don't know if he's the locker room cancer that he's made out to be sometimes. But I think his value from an NFL contract standpoint definitely takes a hit. And when you don't know what the future holds, your fantasy value takes a hit.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest. I guess there were some rumors that he might be released, but if anybody tells you they were expecting this, I'm gonna call BS. Expecting him not to be re-signed, expecting his role to be reduced, fine. The argument that we've seen a couple arguments come out of the Jaguars camp. I think a lot of us, there was speculation earlier this morning that more was going to come out about there being a personality conflict or something else. Marrone said that they tried to trade him and couldn't find anybody who would trade for him. I guess that's possible. I don't remember them making a huge effort or a huge announcement about that. Usually, even when teams are trying to keep it secret, they're shopping somebody. There's 45 NFL insiders that leaked that out, so that seemed weird. Marrone said two things: that they're not tanking, that they're trying to win, and this puts them in the best place to win. That's really tough to swallow. And B, that Fournette's style doesn't work with what they're trying to do with the offense. And while that might be true, I find it a little bit weird that they just outright release a guy that they didn't have to release. In terms of it saving them money, it only saves them money if he loses his grievance, because they've voided all these guarantees and he filed a grievance, and the NFL hasn't heard the grievance, but they said they're going to accelerate to hear it now that he's been released from his team and that it was a non-amicable split. And if Jacksonville loses that grievance, all that guaranteed money they tried to void goes right back onto their salary cap. So it was a curious and surprising move. In terms of fantasy, I like Washington as the best possible location. I think that honestly does the least damage to people who've already drafted, redraft, and dynasty in terms of who he joined. Fournette could have a chance to put up some decent numbers, and it's not like, if you drafted Adrian Peterson to be your RB2, you had a draft strategy that was unconventional, to say the least. If you thought Antonio Gibson was going to be your savior this year, you had a draft strategy that was unconventional. I don't think Dennis is wrong that he could potentially be the best back in Chicago or Miami, but what a bummer that would be. I actually think he'd be a terrible fit for the kind of system they run in New Orleans. I don't see that as something Sean Payton's going to take a chance for with a team that they think can get to the Super Bowl and that apparently the three of us all think can get to the Super Bowl. I'm not sure I buy the Leonard Fournette there, but you definitely have to drop him. I don't know if you guys adjusted your ranks. I went to adjust my ranks. I didn't drop him out of the top 48, but I dropped him way down for the time being because there's a ton of places he could land where he joins some kind of godforsaken committee. If he went to New England, oh man, what a bummer.
Yeah, so, I've not adjusted mine yet, but I will after this podcast.
Credit to, speaking of football, speaking of FB on Twitter, Blake Bortles, top 5 pick by the Jaguars in 2014, ended up with the Rams. Dante Fowler, top 5 pick by the Jaguars in 2015, ended up with the Rams. Jalen Ramsey, top 5 pick by the Jaguars in 2016, ended up with the Rams. Leonard Fournette, top 5 pick by the Jaguars in 2017.
But that would be a place where it wouldn't do that much probably damage because people like Cam Akers long-term in Dynasty, that might still not be affected. Some people like myself think Darrell Henderson might get a shot, but nobody was really banking on them as a guaranteed top 20 running back. So while it hurts your shares there, it wouldn't be a horrible situation. I'm thinking, like somebody floated today, what if Philly signs him? We all might need to change this to like the happy hour podcast and do something else because that would be savage.
Shots all around.
Well, yeah, that's why I saw everybody making the joke about him going to the New York Jets just because of the way they really seem to not want – they want to do everything they can to not make sure that Le'Veon Bell is the back for them. I'm with you on Washington. That was kind of the first name that popped up in my head. I know if you guys are on the Discord channel, you saw me post in there. I thought Washington, Miami, and Houston made the most sense to me. I don't know if him going to Miami would really affect that much. Like, I think obviously a lot of people did bank on Jordan Howard. I'm one of them. It's really going to hurt my Scott Fishbowl team if he goes to Miami because I grabbed Howard and Breida late as some kind of backup fill-in running backs, but I wasn't necessarily counting on them a whole lot. Like, I feel like if he were to go there, if you were really banking your team on Howard or Breida to be like your RB2, I kind of feel like you messed up there to begin with. So I think him going to Washington or Miami is not a big deal. New Orleans is intriguing to me, but I don't think he goes there just because I think they believe so much in Murray. But hang on. Sorry, I'm doing that live. There's a mosquito over here. It's driving me crazy. Murray and Kamara, I think they believe so much in them now. We're about to get into some news with Kamara that I feel like adding Fournette in there may be just too much. But then again, they are, as Matt, you just mentioned, Super Bowl contenders, and adding a guy like Fournette only helps you. It doesn't hurt you. So I think we'll know by Wednesday, I would think, because I think the waiver period is 48 hours, isn't it? So I think I don't know if I would imagine we will know by either Tuesday or Wednesday if Fournette's going to land somewhere. If not, that means he's a free agent, and then who knows what happens. But I can't imagine Fournette makes it through without being claimed by somebody.
Can you imagine there's got to be one out there, but there's a Scott Fishbowl team out there that took Fournette, Geis, David Montgomery, and took the upside waiting on receiver for Rager, who's just sitting there going, when are waivers going to run?
Not even that. I got to figure out who posted something. It was hilarious when I saw it because I didn't even think about it, and they are in the Scott Fishbowl League as well, and he posted something. He's like, I know there's a team that drafted some, and he named everybody, and I was just like, holy crap, it is very possible for them to end up with all these players. And I can't.
Well, even if you just had those four, it wouldn't be unreasonable if you were hammering RB2s.
Well, yeah. And per an article on NBC Sports, the waiver period is 24 hours. So we'll know tomorrow if somebody claims him.
Yeah, I thought it was a little quicker. Well, and it was interesting. They didn't waste any time dropping them Monday morning because it was 6:45 a.m. here when I'm hearing it on NFL radio. So East Coast, it was like, it's 8:30. Let's cut Fournette.
Yeah, it was. I know. I was kind of surprised because we were just talking about some of us we're all in sleeper leagues, and I was trying to go in to see if I knew I had Raquel Armstead on a lot of teams because I had been pumping him up throughout the offseason. He was a guy that more so for the long-term play because I did not think Jacksonville would hold on to him, and I have seen a lot of the talk of Jacksonville talking about how much they liked Armstead in camp and everything, so I've kind of grabbed him anywhere I could, and I was trying to get on there to make sure I could get him in any leagues that he wasn't because I do think he's going to be the lead back there. So what do you guys think happens with Jacksonville now? I mean, I think we all kind of agree Fournette's a hold. You don't know. There's no reason to trade him. As Dennis mentioned, you're not going to get his value. He could end up on a team like Washington and or a Miami where he's going to get a lot of points going to either one of those because he'll likely be the lead back. He's better than anybody those guys have on the rosters. But what are you doing now with Jacksonville? You've got Chris Thompson, Raquel Armstead, you've got Divine Ogzigbo, who I know Dennis is a big fan of. Like, how are you guys attacking this Jacksonville backfield now?
I had, I think, 4 shares. I rostered Fournette in 4 different places, and in 3 of the 4, I have 2 shares of Ogzigbo and 1 share of Armstead. The other one, I think my team is deep enough to wait it out. I was actually just looking at it because somebody was teasing me on Sleeper about it. But so I had Fournette as my RB3 with Christian McCaffrey and Chris Carson. So he was in the flex. I've got Jalen Samuels and Josh Kelly on my bench. Probably not going to provide much of much solace. So I'll end up going with wide receivers in the flex more, where I'm sitting with Kenny Stills, Chris Conley, Hunter Renfrow, Steve Sims, Brian Edwards. So it's just more of it. If you had him, you're somewhere between not admitting how much you were going to rely on him and saying, okay, well, I have one of his backups, so at least I should have somebody playable, at least on a flex basis.
Yeah, I was yesterday for our site. I wrote a little bit about Montgomery being banged up, because Chicago's in kind of a situation too where they don't know if he'll be ready to go week one or if he'll miss a couple weeks. And behind him, they have Cohen, who's a decent receiving back, just like the Jaguars have Chris Thompson, who's a decent receiving back. But it's hard to imagine long term either of those guys kind of carrying the load. And one of my suggestions was, we forget because we haven't gotten to enjoy preseason football, but typically Thursday will be the last day of preseason and cuts will come on Saturday. I believe they're still sticking to that cut down day schedule. So teams have quietly been carrying around 80 players and they're going to have to go down to 53. Practice squads are big, but I think team like Jacksonville and, a team like Chicago who's just looking for temporary depth, or a team like Jacksonville who doesn't seem like, despite what Marone says, they're fully invested in trying to win their division this year, might go snag a veteran. So I was fortunately about to be on the clock on Sleeper, ironically, when the Fournette cut came. So I took Rockwell Armstead as my, RB5. There's a couple places I have him. Having Armstead or Thompson is great. Taking a flyer on Ozigbo seems worthwhile. One of those guys or all those guys are going to get an opportunity. But my personal feeling is I'm not entirely confident that, as much as they say they cut Fournette so that they can invest in these three guys, that it's just these three guys. And I think you're going to end up seeing, we always do, some talented veterans or some guys that have some upside are going to get set free on Saturday. And teams that are thin in areas are going to go poach themselves something.
Yeah, you're muted, Dennis.
I think Marone laid it all out there when he said that, what was it you said, Matt, that Fournette just didn't fit well with what they were trying to do. And, yeah, he doesn't, because Fournette doesn't like
well,
to
and
lose. The
other question is, if they're really looking for more of a runner receiver, Devonta Freeman still is sitting out there. And I have to imagine the closer we get to the season, the more inclined he is to look at like $1-2 million deals and just say, to hell with it, I'm going to do a prove it deal. And better to be on the field than be forgotten for a year, So there's still a couple of names out there, and I think there are going to be more out there. I would imagine that's probably the Jaguars are going to add someone. I find it hard to believe they're going to roll with just the other reason being Chris Thompson has been electric at times when he's been on the field. In 7 years, he's played 16 games one time.
Yeah, I think if I had to lean on one guy, it's going to be Armstead. I think he can do a little bit of both. We know he can catch the ball a little bit. He's probably going to be the better runner, I think. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of Ozigbo, so I can't say if he is or isn't going to be better than him. I've seen a little bit of Armstead. For me to think he's going to be the guy, I do think that they will rely some on Chris Thompson. But as you just mentioned, Matt, the dude has never stayed healthy. So I would imagine even if he does play or starts out, he's going to be great for you for those 5-6 games that he's healthy, and then he's likely going to get hurt. So he's not a guy I want to rely on. I'm not hopefully having to rely on either one of these guys being your guy, or your RB2. Hopefully it's just a flex option at this point. If not, I mean, I will hope the best for you, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of issues this year. It's going to be a weird season. Kind of a very long discussion I was having in one of my home league drafts this weekend is I feel like luck is going to play a huge factor in fantasy football this year, more compared to any other year, just based on we have no idea what's going to happen with COVID. I think we're going to see a lot more soft tissue injuries. We've already seen a ton of injuries, and I think all that stuff is just going to continue to pile up.
I do have to say, though, if Fournette lands in Indianapolis, which was rumored, Dennis, you're going to be doing the podcast by yourself next week.
Yeah, I'm going to be very upset.
Armstead caught 29 passes in college, and Ozigbo caught 49 passes in college. Yeah,
Wow.
Armstead had 2,800 yards rushing for his
Does
career.
anybody actually
Yeah,
believe
pretty
either
close.
of those guys is a better talent on the field than Fournette? I mean, I know if you're
No.
Doug Marone,
No.
you have to sell that you're not aiming to have one win this season, that you're actually trying. I mean, his best line, I like when they played it, I was laughing so hard I almost missed traffic. But he's like, well, if we get the number one pick, I probably am not going to be here. I have to win games. And I'm like, you're not going to be there anywhere.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm going to say on the college thing, I've really come around to realize that I don't think that matters at all on college stats, because you could have gone in when Melvin Gordon came out and told me the dude can't catch a ball to save his life. And, I mean, outside of this guy who doesn't believe in him, he's made all of us realize he can catch the ball if he wants to. A lot of college offenses don't placate to that. It's not as big a deal, especially Reichwell Armstead coming out of Temple. Pretty sure they weren't running any kind of offense that got the running backs involved in the pass catching game. So for me, I don't read too much into the college stats. He played a couple good games last year. Again, all we have to go on is what these beat writers say, because we can't watch practice. We don't get to see preseason games this year. And I follow all the beat writers just so I can watch this stuff. And Jacksonville's not just coaches, but beat writers have been saying that Armstead has looked great in practice, not just running the ball, but catching the ball as well. Again, it's practice. They're most of the time not even going full contact right now. So there's only so much we can do. I'm just kind of taking what I can from what I've said on there. I'm not saying that, Armstead's going to go out there and look like CMC catching the ball or anything like that. I imagine Chris Thompson's going to be the receiving down back until at least he gets hurt. And then at that point, I don't know.
All right, so we predicted that Jacksonville, at least Fox and I predicted they would win 3 games. I think maybe you had them at 2, Matt.
I had him at 2, yeah.
Does losing Fournette change anything there?
No,
I might
not for me.
I might put him more in the 2-1 range.
I mean,
You don't think that maybe Gardner, now they put the pressure on Gardner and he just starts YOLOing it and they still pull out 3 wins?
I think they're still going to be a bad team. I think I had them as the number 1 pick, so I feel more comfortable in that because it wasn't just Fournette. I know you're going to get to, but they shipped out Yannick Ngakoue too, who was one of their few defensive stars remaining. It's just amazing to think that a team that was in the AFC Championship game in January of 2018 is a massive joke less than 2 years later.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could talk about Ngakoue really quick. I mean, I think a great move for Minnesota. They continue to improve their defensive line. He signs a new contract with them. I think, would they give up like a 5th-round pick or something like that?
They
Like,
gave up a second-round pick,
second.
conditional 5th that could go up to a 3rd, depending on.
Okay.
But here's my question. I think the biggest question, obviously, they invested in Ngakoue. He redid his 1-year deal. He basically took a $6 million pay cut to get out of Jacksonville. But Dennis and I had Minnesota, around 500 being competitive. You had them at 4-12. Does this make you think about them any differently?
No, because it's their offensive line that I have no faith in. Their defense is going to be good. Their defense is almost always good. I mean, their secondary is horrible, and I don't think their secondary improved any. So maybe it'll help the secondary and the fact that the quarterbacks might be the defensive line might get to the quarterbacks more often. But as much as I love Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen, I mean, and Dalvin Cook's good, but that offensive line was horrible. I just believe in the Packers and the Lions more, and I just couldn't see there's just too many good teams in the NFC that I couldn't find a way to make the Vikings realistically good, and so that's why they got to 4. Like I said, I think when we did our stuff, I'm clearly a bigger believer in a lot of the NFC West teams, a little bit more than you guys were, and I think that's what kind of came into the changing in my rankings, because you guys weren't as high on Arizona and the Rams as I was. Like I wanted all 4 teams in the playoffs, and I just kept thinking, well, probably not realistic, so I need to adjust some things here and there.
My biggest fear is, last year, this time, this is how I felt about Seattle. I thought that they had a few talented players, but they also had a lot of holes, and they were going to be like right around a 500 team, and they made that deal and got Clowney, and it seemed to give them some kind of energy, and they ended up being one of the best teams in the NFC. And now I'm like, if that happens with Minnesota, and I'm watching Captain Clutch in the NFC Championship game, I'm gonna yearn for 2020 again.
PFT also on Roto World today reported that Riley Reef said he expects Minnesota to cut him, their left tackle. So he's 31. I think he's been fairly mediocre, but he's the best of a poor lot. And because they owe him $21 million over the next 2 years, $11 million next year, non-guaranteed. And so I think if he doesn't take a pay cut, they're going to, jettison him and move somebody else out there to left tackle.
Maybe Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, possibly. Now they'll move Kyle Rudolph over there and let Irv Smith play tight end, or vice versa. All right, so I mentioned earlier we were going to talk a little bit about Kamara. I'm going to group him and Mixon together because there's rumors that they are both not participating in camp. Now, Mixon has been at camp but been complaining of migraines, so he has not practiced. Kamara has now been absent for 3 days from camp and practice, and a lot of it is being rumored that they're in possible holdout situations because they want new contracts. Obviously, if you guys drafted this weekend, that's not great news. I know in my home redraft, Kamara was a keeper, but he still went as pick. He went in the first round, and then Joe Mixon actually went at pick 23 overall. So he fell a little bit just due to that news, but still went into the second round. What are your guys' thoughts on them? Do you think that they're going to play? Because again, even though there's the new not rule, what is it? The new stuff in the
collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, about that doesn't apply to guys. That doesn't apply to guys on their rookie deals, though. That's only guys who've signed their deals. So rookie deals is a little bit different. Are you guys worried about them possibly holding out? What are your guys' thoughts on that? And then if, say, Kamara and Mixon hold out, how are you attacking those backfields in New Orleans and Cincinnati?
Well, I think with Melvin Gordon, he showed us that, anybody can hold out. They could both hold out. They could neither hold out. I think Mixon is sort of getting painted with a broad brush here, though, because he does have a history of migraines. And from everything I've seen, he basically has said he's been dealing with migraines versus Kamara, who has said, I want a new contract and I'm holding out, is what I've seen. Or has an unexcused absence from practice for 3 straight days. I feel like Kamara maybe just sending a message and he'll be back in. They'll work something out. There's not a lot of NFL players that get NFL running backs, not players, running backs that get a big second contract. And I think Kamara has shown that he's worthy, maybe not of a top 3 contract, but somewhere in that 3 to 6 or 7 range is where he can fall. He's a great receiving back, an adequate runner. He hasn't shown that he can hold up long-term running the ball 15 to 20 times a game. But the way they use him, he's a star. If he does hold out, they've got Lat Murray and Ty Montgomery. I'd rather have Alvin Kamara. Joe Mixon, they've got Gio Bernard and Travion Williams. I'd rather have Joe Mixon. I don't think he's been holding out. But, hey, Leonard Fournette got cut, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, the Mixon thing seems a little bit weird because it feels like just a couple weeks ago we were talking about how he seems close to re-signing with them long term and wasn't asking for very much money. I think that could be people just trying to read into it. Kamara, if Cook didn't successfully hold out after all of his bluster and ended up coming back, we saw what happened with Bell. We've seen where it hasn't really worked out for these guys. I guess he could try holding out. I personally don't think he will, but that is a team where I think if they thought he was going to stay away, that to me feels like the best potential fit for a Devonta Freeman in terms of skill set. I'm not saying he's on the same level, but same division, so they've seen him plenty. He brings kind of that multi. I think he would be a better fit. Like if we were talking about him or Leonard Fournette looking to add somebody there, I think he would be a better fit for the way that New Orleans plays than Fournette. I think you're muted.
My bad. I do think that I actually don't. I think both of them will end up playing because Mixon, I think, is too important to Cincinnati, especially having Joe Burrow back there now as your lead quarterback. You need, in my opinion, your best offensive player on the field, which is Mixon. And Kamara, I could almost honestly see a Zeke situation repeating itself in New Orleans here, where if they say they can't get a Leonard Fournette or they don't want to pay a Devonta Freeman, this is your window. And so I do think in a way Kamara is doing what Zeke did and like, look, I know this is your window, but this is my chance to get paid. And so maybe he sits and they want Kamara because they want to help Breeze possibly get that last Super Bowl win before he retires, that maybe they just end up paying him whatever. I mean, I don't know how it's going to work out. I think if you're a Kamara or Mixon owner, I'm not going to overpay to get their backups. You're just going to have to kind of wait it out for now, in my opinion. I don't, obviously Gio showed that he can carry the load when he's the guy, but he also has injury issues. I don't know really. I mean, Travion Williams, I don't think is an every down back. He's a good pass catcher. Maybe he can get you 10, 15 carries, but I'm not expecting much out of him. And then we know Murray, though, can carry the load. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring someone in besides Murray if Kamara decides to hold out. But I think at this point, you just kind of have to hold tight and hope that neither one of them holds out and they're going to be there for your teams. I think that's it. Oh, really quick, Jalen Reagor, before we go into our NFL stuff. Jalen Reagor hurt his shoulder. Go ahead.
A little bit of breaking news.
Yeah.
So Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo are reporting that the NFL has taken over the investigation into the conduct with the Washington Redskins, which feels like maybe the first step toward making him sell the
Washington
team
football
because
team.
Making him creating an atmosphere of harassment.
Well, I feel like a lot of Washington football fans are very happy right now because I feel like they've been asking, they've been wanting him to sell the team for a long time. So, hey, that's good. I guess some internal investigations don't turn out so bad. I know when this kind of happened, I think it was 2 years ago now with Mark Cuban and the Dallas Mavericks. They did an internal investigation. I think the difference there is Mark Cuban came out and owned all of it as it being his fault being the owner of the organization, where it kind of seems like Schneider has not done that at all. He's kind of come out and said, oh, well, it's these people, not me. I'm all for it, man. I don't know. I'm not a Washington fan, so I don't know how bad of an owner he is. I hear a lot of Washington fans complaining about how bad of an owner he is. And if he is part of the reason why that culture is the way it is, then in my opinion, good riddance. So Jalen Reagor did hurt his shoulder in practice the other day. I find this very funny in the fact that he did it while tackling a defender who picked off Jalen Hurts, which just seems kind of, not a waste of time, in my opinion, especially as someone who drafted Reagor in a lot of leagues this year expecting something from him. But they're saying he's likely going to be out probably only 2 to 4 weeks. I know he's supposed to get an MRI today. I haven't seen anything outside of that. So if you have Reagor, if you're in a redraft league with a shallow bench, maybe you drop him, but I think he's only maybe going to miss opening week and he should be back. Philly is decimated with injuries right now, so I think once Reagor comes back, he's still going to be the top dog up there with Ertz and Goddard, so I wouldn't be too scared for Reagor. Do you guys have anything you want to say on Reagor before we move on to our NFL awards?
The Greg Ward disrespect is palpable. So one of our guys over at Dynasty Nerds today, gosh, I wish I could remember which one it was throwing out the go by JJ Arcega-Whiteside for a fourth.
Yeah, because Jeffrey's still on PUP, right? And there's no lock. He's coming back.
Yeah, I think there was rumors that he might be ready, but he's not 100% for the start of the season. I would imagine he's going to end up on PUP, but I don't think it's been confirmed that's what they're going to do.
I mean, Jeffrey hasn't been 100% in about 4 years.
Yeah.
Ever, probably. But, Djax really only had one incredible game last year. Arcega-Whiteside, they have Greg Ward. It's
Joe Reed. Yeah, it's bad.
no
It's
John
bad.
Hightower.
Sorry, John
Hightower.
Hightower. Yeah, that's right.
Quez Watkins.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, this is great for week 1 for Miles Sanders, Dallas Goedert, and Zach Ertz. I actually readjusted my tight ends rankings and put Ertz back up because I think they're pretty much going to be, it sounds like they're almost going to have to start the year in the condition they were last year, where it's like, thank God we have these 2 tight ends and Miles Sanders, and we'll just hope one of the Jags that we have out there at receiver can actually catch the ball if we have to throw it at them.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I was a little disappointed to hear that because I think that news came out like an hour after we drafted. I took him in like the 14th round, so it's not like I was expecting much out of him. I think he's like my wide receiver 6 on that team, but still, I was kind of excited to have him just in case he blows up. And then, of course, that news hits me. Then you got the DeAndre Swift news.
Not the way you were expecting.
Yeah, and then Matt's over here talking about Fournette to Indy, and I drafted Jonathan Taylor in the 3rd round. So, my whole redraft team has gone to shit in the past 2 days. So
Fournette to Detroit was another rumor.
Oh, God, I drafted Swift, too, in the 6th round. So,
well, there's a lot of places he could end up. That's what I'm saying. I feel like we're at the time and space in a year that has been nothing but a dream killer. Yeah. That Fournette's gonna, however bad you think it could be, it's almost like when we were at the draft and we were like, here's all the 5 ideal landing spots for this player, and they went to some place and on draft night you're like, what the actual F? And I feel like Fournette's about to give us one of those what the actual F, a team we didn't even realize was looking for a running back.
The New York Giants. All you Barkley fans about to get pissed off, including myself, because I own Barkley in a couple
Joe Judge might have the shortest tenure in the history of time if he signs Fournette and benches Barkley for first rookie.
Hey, I'd be for it at that point if that happens.
Fournette, Green Bay Packer.
You know what?
That would be a dream crusher too.
That I wouldn't be surprised. We still have not been able to get Green Bay to free Aaron Jones. So, all right, NFL time. We're going to talk about some of the who we think is going to win some of these awards here. We'll start with the NFL passing yards. Who do you guys think leads the league in NFL passing? The top Vegas odds have it as Mahomes, Breeze, Brady, Rodgers, Ryan, Prescott, Murray, Goff, Jackson, and Wilson. Who are you guys going with?
I went with the same as Dennis, Mahomes.
Yeah, I have Mahomes. I feel like there's going to be a significant number of targets to the running back. I don't know that they have a running back that's going to rush for more than 750 yards, maybe 700 yards. But I could see CEH going 750 on the ground and 750 through the air to go with 1,000-yard seasons by Hill and who's the tight end? Kelsey. So now you're pushing 3,000 yards there, and then you scatter around another 1,800 yards. Yep. So I mean they're going to be a passing team more so I think than most. I'm calling Dak Prescott QB 2 or 3 in fantasy. I forget where exactly I put him. 3 1,000-yard season or 3 1,000-yard receivers is what I'm looking at there in Dallas. And so I really I've tried to figure out a way to convince myself to go Prescott over Mahomes. I think it'll be close, but I do think Mahomes is going to eke it out over Prescott when it comes to passing yards.
Well, you can call for it all you want, but I was the only one who had the balls to call for Dak Prescott, and I hate Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, but that is what I'm going with.
The theme of this offseason has been making us all be the highest on the thing.
Pick the guy you hate.
Yeah, exactly.
I Carolina sucked for weeks, and somehow you guys end up with me having them the best record. So Dak is who you deserve.
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna be I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna take Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. This is the first year I've predicted him to have a winning record, I think, on the podcast. Obviously, hoping that CeeDee Lamb gets involved because I love Lamb, love Gallup, love Zeke. Just don't really love Dak and Amari Cooper. No, I mean I actually do like Dak. I just don't like Amari Cooper.
Now,
but I
you get the full chest tattoo of Dak eating his Campbell soup.
no, I will not. I'll get a full chest tattoo of Zeke.
Go with the Dolphin
Zeke
tramp
eating,
stamp.
but exactly. I'm not getting the Dolphin tramp stamp. Barker is getting the Lightning Bolt tramp stamp because Justin Herbert is an absolute stud. But yeah, I'm going to go with Dak. I like the team around him. We saw last year they leaned more pass heavy. I think that will continue this year as well. I feel like I'm going to really regret saying this, but I feel like Mahomes can't lead the league every year in passing, right? Like something
didn't last year.
Well, I know, but I mean, like everybody picks Mahomes like the for sure thing. I think this is gonna be Prescott's year. He's been so close last year. I think this is the year he takes that little bit of a step forward. So who do you guys have as the NFL leading rusher? I thought this last one was funny, obviously, but I did this show sheet up before the news dropped today. NFL odds had it as Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, Zeke Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Chris Carson, Joe Mixon, and then Leonard Fournette. Who are you guys going with to lead the NFL in rushing?
Not Fournette. Though it would be so 2020 for him to sign somewhere and then go out and lead the league in rushing.
He's going to sign with Indy and crush all of our Jonathan Taylor hopes, and then lead the league in rushing.
I went with Nick Chubb. I feel like he's looking at a 1,800 yard season.
Yeah, I wanted to go with Chubb, but I decided that Dennis and I can't be the same on every, or it's going to be the most boring show ever. So I went with Henry because I still think Tennessee is predominantly a rushing team. And, obviously they invested back in him. He's finally seems to be with a coaching staff in an offense that wants to commit to using him. Because we had seen flashes of it in previous years. Last year, it feels like they kind of put it together. So I went with him.
I went with Chubb as well. I mean, I kind of already said that on the when we did our running back rankings. I said that even though I had Chubb at 6, I think 5 or 6, and I think it was because
of hashtag analysis, or did you go with him because of homerism?
Both. It's a little bit of both. I
The
think.
answer is yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I mean, I did. I said it on the. I do think Kareem Hunt's obviously going to eat into his catches, but I said you can't, in my opinion, lower Chubb that much in your rankings because of how good of a runner he is. I think they're going to lean on him with an improved offensive line. I think when they get up in games, which I think might actually happen this year, and them not always be behind, they're going to try and grind it out. And while I'm sure Hunt's going to get some carries, they're going to lean heavier on Chubb. He just missed leading the league in rushing last year to Derrick Henry when Freddie Kitchens stupidly benched him for the entire second half of that game, and then Derrick Henry went off for like 200-plus yards in that last game to end up beating Chubb by 40 yards or something like that to win the league rushing title last year. I think this is going to be Chubb's year. I'm expecting a huge year for him. So said it on the running back rankings episode. I'm not going to change my answer now, so I am sticking with Chubb. I added 2 more. I'm adding more categories on there just so you guys know you can double check the show sheet because I forgot about him. So most receiving yards this year, top candidates per Vegas: Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Odell Beckham Jr., Tyreek Hill, Adam Thielen, Devontae Adams, and Amari Cooper. Who you guys picking? Or I guess I'll go first since I haven't gone first yet. I'm taking Devontae Adams. I think he is the only game in town for Green Bay. I know there's a lot of talk for Lazard right now, and I'm sure he's going to have a good year, but the year Adams was putting up last year would look like it was going to be a huge year, and then he ended up getting that turf toe. I'm thinking Adams is going to continue that trend forward this year. He's in, I think, a contract year this year. He's only got one other year. Yeah, so going into a contract year this year, I think he really wants to get paid if it's not going to be with Green Bay. So I'm expecting a huge year from Devontae Adams. I'm going to take him as my pick. Who do you guys have?
No, I like Adams a lot, but he just doesn't seem to put up the yardage that the other receivers do. I'm going with Julio Jones. Julio has been a yardage monster year after year after year. You know, he's a 14, 15, 1,600 yard guy. He's in a high volume passing offense. And I get that some people love of Calvin Ridley. But Calvin Ridley's a 2. He is the 2 there. Hayden Hurst is the tight end, and he's going to be high volume for a tight end. But they throw the ball more than just about any other team in the NFL. And most of those throws, the biggest portion of that volume goes to Julio Jones. And Julio is going to rack up the yardage. 1,500, 1,600 yard season incoming.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I forgot about Adams. I might have picked him. I think that's going to be close. But I went with Michael Thomas.
All right. Interesting. So
well,
I guess
before we move on, hey, I got a quick question from the Discord chat. So,
okay.
14 team PPR, Cortland Sutton plus to get DeAndre Hopkins. Plus what? Plus a first, plus 2 first.
At least a first.
That's what I said. At least the first.
See, I'm going to be honest. As much as I love Sutton, I have Hopkins on a couple teams. I'm probably still not taking that trade though. Like I think that's a fair offer. You're
notorious for not taking trades, good trades.
I told you I can't take it. That will kill my flex spot. I can't put, as much as I love Hakeem Butler, I can't put Hakeem Butler in my flex spot. I'm limited with my options right now.
It just depends on if you're trying to score points.
I am trying to score points. That's the name of the game. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I
trying to score points like Doug Marrone does, and then make that trade.
Okay. I think I answered that question there. That was mine. I said at least a first. It may cost you, 2 firsts or first and a second. If you found somebody who's I like Sutton a lot, and I believe he's going to take a step up. I think I would still hedge my bet and want a first. You may, if you found a true believer, be able to do it for a second if somebody was down on, down on Hopkins because of the move or thought highly of Christian Kirk. That's where I feel like it's not just, I've heard the argument that people are down on Sutton a little bit because of the increased competition he's going to face from Judy and Hamler. You just don't hear those kind of arguments about Hopkins, who's a guy who has a longer track record of proving it in crappier offenses. Some people have questions about Drew Lock. Some people have questions about the competition Sutton's going to face. I don't think he has a high enough value that you can get away with anything less than a first.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it would be a first, maybe a late first if, depending on what your belief in Sutton is and your belief in the effect of switching teams and Hopkins getting older. Do you believe in Kyler Murray? But, I mean, Sutton was better with Emmanuel Sanders than he was without him. So the whole Jerry Jeudy is going to take targets away from, Jerry Jeudy is going to take defenders away from Cortland Sutton. That's what Jerry Jeudy is going to do. And Cortland Sutton, like I predicted last week, 1,400 yard season for Cortland Sutton. Or did I say 12?
Well, no, he said 14. And that's what I'm saying. If you found like a true passionate believer, you might be able to package Sutton in a second and make it happen. That's a risk.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it all just depends on you're going to have to, if this is in your league, you're going to have to hope that this person isn't as high on Hopkins, like Matt said, with him going to Arizona. Like, I'm still someone who believes Hopkins. I know a lot of people, I don't really want to get into some people's rankings, but I saw I don't know if you want to say prominent, but someone who is very, I guess, prominent on Twitter, very highly followed on Twitter for their fantasy advice, has him ranked as wide receiver 17 this year. I just don't see how that's possible. He is too good. I still have him in my top 5. I know a lot of people, including people who work for major websites, saying that there's no way he finishes in the top 5. I just don't see it. And so for me, if someone came to me, I'll be honest, because I am someone who loves draft picks because of how much I love college football. If Matt were to come to me today and be like, hey, man, if Matt wouldn't trade me Cortland Sutton. If Dennis were to come to me today and be like, hey, I've got Cortland Sutton and these 2 first-round picks next year for DeAndre Hopkins, that I would probably do because I believe in myself enough to think, hey, I'm going to get 2. I know I can get 2 studs in the first round next year.
Now,
go ahead.
What if it was Cortland Sutton, 2 first-round picks, Ryan Tannehill, and Justin Herbert. For Hopkins, Ryan
I don't have the depth.
Shepard.
I don't have the depth. I want to do it. I want Justin Herbert. I don't have the depth. Yeah, so for me, I would need. I think it is fair to say a first round, maybe even a second rounder, and Sutton is fair for Hopkins, but it's going to have to play into what they really think about Hopkins. If you have someone like me who really believes in him, I don't think that's going to be enough to get it done. I think it is going to cost 2 firsts. And even then, I would be slightly hesitant to do the deal because even though Sutton I don't think is far off from Hopkins starting this year and moving forward, I still think Hopkins has the better range of outcomes to finish top 5 for the next couple of years than Sutton does, I guess is the way I would put it. So
the other thing for me that you have to factor in is league size, whereas you might get away with a little less in a 10-team league. Yeah. I've noticed when you get to 14 and 16, people are more precious with the people they think can be top performers at a position.
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
There you go, Hulk Goat Smash. That's us. That's what we think about your trade.
All right, so I'll go first on this one because I just added these. I forgot to put these on here the other day. They didn't have the Vegas odds, so I kind of completely forgot about putting these on there. But who do you think has the most passing touchdowns in 2020? I went with Matt Ryan, kind of based on what Dennis was talking about. I do think that they're going to be very pass-heavy. They were last year as well. I'm not as big a believer in Todd Gurley having a huge year this year. Plus, we've seen he is very good out of the backfield as well. We saw a lot of that with Devonta Freeman when Freeman was healthy. Ryan kind of hitting him on those quick plays out of the backfield and allowing him to score. So I'm going to go with Matt Ryan this year for me on most passing touchdowns. Matt, who do you have?
I'm going to go with Dak Prescott. I think they're going to be very pass heavy, and that's for one of the questions when we get a little further down. That's one of the reasons I had him there. So I think he'll end up with the most.
I agree with the Dak take. If they're going to have 3 1,000-yard receivers, you got to believe a bunch of them are going to be going into the end zone.
All right, so most receiving touchdowns. I'll admit this is like 99% homerism, 1% analyst. I'm going to go with Odell Beckham Jr. I mentioned it when we did our wide receiver rankings. I do think that he is going to have a huge bounce back year. With Baker, I think he's going to be the one. I think they're going to look for him in the red zone. A lot of people expecting it to be Hooper. I think it's going to be Chubb, Beckham as the first 2 options. I think Beckham kind of returns to that, I don't want to say glory, but more of what we saw from him in New York this year I'm going 13 touchdowns. I think he's going to lead the league at wide receiver for touchdowns. Dennis, who you going with?
I am going with Are we on receiving touchdowns? Is that
yes,
where we're
yes,
at?
Receiving touchdowns.
Okay. I'm going with Kenny Galladay. More homerism. He's the guy there. And Detroit, last year through 8 games with a healthy Stafford, they were on quite a roll with the passing game. I think they'll pick up right where they left off. Their line is a better pass blocking line, I think, than they are run blocking line. And with a fresh and healthy T.J. Hockenson to add there to take some pressure off Galladay down the middle, that's going to open Galladay up on the outside some. So I do like Galladay to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns.
And I went with Devontae Adams because if Aaron Rodgers isn't forcing him the ball in the middle of the field, he's sure as hell going to be forcing him the ball in the red zone. Not a lot of experience, not a lot of trust and rapport built up there. They couldn't work on any of that in game situations in the preseason. I think Adams is going to be, the guy he's locked on to.
All right, and then most rushing touchdowns. I kind of went with the guy that Matt mentioned, or I'm sorry, no, I didn't. I thought, yeah, I did, didn't I? Yes, okay. I went with Derrick Henry. I do think that they are going to be very rush heavy, and especially when they get down into the red zone. I like A.J. Brown, like Jonnu Smith, but I don't think that they're necessarily going to be big red zone threats. I think it's going to be mostly Henry. So I see him easily getting the most rushing touchdowns this year. Dennis, who do you have?
I'm I'm with you on Henry. I've been sitting here looking at my rankings and playing through in my head what I think, who I think could lead the league in rushing. You know, McCaffrey is going to catch a lot of passes. Yes, he rushes the ball a lot, but Saquon, Elliott, you know, if Dak is going to lead the league in passing touchdowns, then Elliott's probably not going to lead the league in rushing touchdowns. Kamara, he does get a pretty high number of chances in the red zone, but I still don't think enough to lead the league in rushing. I think he would probably some of the passing would cut that in. And so, it just kind of comes down to what's left, and that's Derrick Henry. It's not going to be Drake. It's not going to be Mixon or Cook. I don't think Sanders. So I'm sticking with Drake.
Not going for 20 touchdowns for Aaron Jones?
No, it's possible. But, they weren't all rushing for Jones.
16 of them were.
Yeah.
Matt, who do you have?
I went with Saquon Barkley. I think he's due for a big bounce back year. I think a new coaching staff and a new approach. They invested in their offensive line in the draft and in the offseason. I think when they get down close, they're going to try to punch the ball in. I don't think that they have Evan Ingram, when he's been healthy, is a guy that they seem to look at the goal line. I don't know if any of the other three receivers strike me as, dominant, goal line area receivers. So I think it's going to be a good year for Barkley.
All right. Best quarterback for fantasy this year. Matt, kick it off.
I'm going with the man, the myth, the legend, Dak Prescott.
Dennis, what about you?
I agree. And Dak is typically good for 350 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground at a nearly 5,000.
Yeah, no, I was waiting to see where he was going with that.
Dennis,
what was that?
We thought you were talking about. Yeah, we thought you were talking about 350 yards and 6 touchdowns a game before you added. You said it and then you paused and then added rushing, and we were both like, "Oh shit, okay." Dak Prescott's MVP.
He's pretty typical 350 yards rushing on the season and 6 touchdowns. But then he's going to pass for close to 5,000 yards and lead the league in touchdowns. Potentially, let's see, did I pick him? Yeah, to lead the league in passing touchdowns. So it's been shown that if you're going to be the QB1, you have to at least have some rushing capability. You don't have to have 1,200 yards like Lamar, but 300 to 600 yards on the ground if you're going to lead the league in fantasy points from the quarterback position. And I think Dak fits into that mold pretty comfortably.
So for me, I went Kyler Murray. I talked about this a little bit on the quarterback episode. I think it's going to be a bigger year for him rushing and throwing the ball. Adding a guy like Hopkins doesn't hurt at all. I did still have technically Mahomes over him, but I think where you can get Murray, while it's not much later than Mahomes, you can get him a couple rounds later. And I think he's going to be right up there with Prescott, Mahomes, and Lamar as one of the best quarterbacks. So I'm going to give him just a slight edge here. He's a guy that I'm really banking on this year, so chances are he's going to suck. Best running back for fantasy this year, I am going with Saquon Barkley. I know a lot of people think CMC and would not be surprised if it ends up being CMC. If I'm going to be honest, if we're sitting in redraft right now or startups, as long as it's not super, maybe even a super flex. If it's 1-1, still taking Christian McCaffrey. But I do expect a big year from Barkley this year. I think he's going to be right there into the discussion with CMC, if not beating him at the running back position for fantasy. Who do you guys have?
So I also went with Barkley. It's so hard to repeat as the number 1 running back. CMC could have a great year and end up RB2 to RB4, and no one would be surprised. I don't believe as much in Carolina. I'm not a huge Giants record person either, but like I said, I think Barkley gets a little more work of the goal line, manages to stay healthy, gets more passing. I think he ends up going back to be the number 1.
Yeah, he's the unquestioned running back in New York. Daniel Jones showed last season that he could make some plays. They've got a solid receiving core, 3 good wide receivers, and when healthy, a really good tight end in Ingram. So when you add Slayton and Tate and Shepard and Ingram into that passing game, then that's going to open things up for Barkley, give him some more room to operate. So I feel like we've seen him be really good in the passing game. So he's going to be out there. There's no threat to his position on the depth chart. There's no timeshare. Barkley plays when he wants to play, and he comes out only because he wants to come out. It's much like CMC. They're not looking to share the ball. It's only if he decides he needs a breather. So it's Saquon Barkley. But I agree, you still take CMC at 101 just because the probability of him not busting is super high. I mean, we've seen Barkley have a couple iffy years with injuries and whatnot, but 6 of one, half a dozen of another.
So best wide receiver for fantasy, I went Devontae Adams. Mentioned it earlier. I think he's going to lead the league in receiving yards. I think he's going to be right up there in the touchdown category as well. Again, contract year. It's Aaron Rodgers' guy. I'm buying all in on Adams this year. As long as he stays healthy, I think you're going to see a special season from him as Green Bay. I know I think had that best record for them when the 3 of us, but I think all 3 had them in the playoffs. I think they're yes. Yeah. I think they're going to have to rely heavily on Jones and Rodgers and Adams this year more than ever because I just don't – I'm not as big a believer in I like Lazard, but I don't think he's going to take this big step forward everybody else has, and I think Sternberger is still at least a year away from being anything at tight end. So all in on Adams. Dennis, who do you have?
I am going with Julio Jones. There's a misnomer out there that Julio doesn't score touchdowns, but he's usually good for about 8 touchdowns. I think he's had a couple double-digit years. Now he's had a couple stinker years too, and I think that sort of has developed this narrative around him. But when you throw out 1,500 yards, 9 or 10 touchdowns, 100 receptions, Julio's going to be out there racking up points.
Yeah, and I went with Michael Thomas. I just think he's really good. I think the Saints are going to try to roll back and do a lot of the same kind of attack and strategy they did last year and try to have a better end result in the playoffs. And I just think he's going to be right up there again, especially with all the receptions and targets. I think Sanders can have a good year, but he's not going to take away from Michael Thomas.
All right, so on to some NFL awards. Coach of the Year. Before we go to Coach of the Year, a report just came out that looks like the Kansas City Chiefs are looking to lock up Brett Veach and Andy Reid through 2025. So good for them coming off their Super Bowl win. While I don't think Andy Reid is necessarily going to be in Coach of the Year, I guess he deserves to be because I expect the Chiefs to be like 14-2, but I don't think he'll get the award. The top Vegas odds have it as Sean McDermott, Mike Tomlin, Bill O'Brien, Mike Vrabel, Vic Fangio, John Gruden, Mike McCarthy, and Matt Patricia. Who are you guys going with? I'll let you guys go first.
I went with Matt Patricia. He wasn't on your list. I added him so that I could.
Oh, my bad. I thought he was on there, but okay. So
I went with Matt Patricia because if you remember, I had Detroit winning the North and making the playoffs. I think if that happens, that's going to be a pretty epic turnaround from 3rd overall pick to the 3rd seed in the NFC. So that was my pick.
Yeah, I don't have them winning the division, but I do have them making the playoffs, and so I went with Patricia as well. I feel like he's, him and Flores and O'Brien out of that Belichick tree, they're all kind of doing it similarly and differently. I think it's easy to get wrapped up in Patricia's personality sometimes, and he's this kind of goofy guy with the pencil over his ear, but he seems to be making progress, putting the team together. like he wants it, and they seem to be performing for him a little better and a little better and a little better. I think this is the year they take a step. So I went with Patricia as well.
I'm just going all in. Kevin Stefanski. Can't take a team that went 6-10 the year before, go 11-5, compete for a division title, and not win Coach of the Year. So I'm going Stefanski. If he is really able to take this team that obviously had all the hype last year, then coming into this year, where I do think a lot of people like Cleveland, but I don't see quite the same hype, which I'm happy with. If he is really able to turn him into a team that I think all three of us predicted to be a playoff team and have good record, especially in that division with Pittsburgh and Baltimore as well, I think if he doesn't win it, I think he's going to be right there with the top honors. Obviously, I do think Matt Patricia is a good choice as well. I did not have Detroit in; I had him just outside, finishing 10-6. But if he is able to do that, I wouldn't be surprised if he won it as well. I think he's got a really good shot. John Gruden is another one that. If he ends up taking the Raiders to the playoffs like me and Dennis think he can, I think he might be in that discussion as well. Fucking skill. Rookie of the Year. I will go first. I've been all in on him, so I'm not going to back off him now. Jonathan Taylor. I think he's the runaway Rookie of the Year favorite, in my opinion. It was not even listed that way. Actually, I don't think there was. Yeah, it was. He was not even on the list. For Rookie of the Year honors per Vegas. It was Burrow, Tua, Swift, Lamb, Judy. I added Taylor on there. But I'm all in on Jonathan Taylor having a monster season for the Colts.
I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb. I think he's going to have a good year, and Dallas is going to have a good season. I think that'll be the rising tide that lifts them up.
Well, you guys make some excellent points. Let me tell you why you're wrong. No, those are both. I like Taylor. I think if we're looking at the 2021, I think you're looking at Jonathan Taylor being possibly a top 5 pick. I think you're looking at CeeDee Lamb, especially if they clear out some of the traffic there in Dallas. You might be looking at him as a top 15 pick. But I think if you're going to sit here by you, I mean me, sit here and say that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to rush for 750 yards and he's going to catch enough passes to rack up 750 yards. And the Chiefs are going to push deep into the playoffs, deeper than Dallas, deeper than Indianapolis. Well, they're going to make the playoffs where Indianapolis isn't. I think you're looking at Clyde Edwards-Helaire as the Rookie of the Year.
So interesting tagline there. J.K. Dobbins, I don't think will be Rookie of the Year. He does have a phenomenal offensive line, but I don't think he plays much. He also asked thoughts on the 49ers. I think the 49ers are going to be a great team this year. I think they're going to end up winning that. I think I had them winning the division. I don't remember if you two had them there or not, but I had them winning with Seattle finishing right behind them. So 49ers, I think, are going to be very good.
I don't know, Matt. You wouldn't put your record and stuff on the sheet.
I messed up. I deleted all my
stuff.
And then
you deleted it.
I will delete what? I didn't delete the sheet. It's still there.
No, you deleted your records. So
I didn't mean to.
You put it on there, and then
I'm gonna redo them. I just haven't. I want to get it. I want to get it back to where I had it with Las Vegas in, and that other one I didn't. I will get them on there probably this weekend because I got 3 days.
I did have 49ers making the playoffs, being the top wild card. I had Seattle winning there, but neither. If they flip positions, it wouldn't surprise me. I think they're both going to be right up at the top there.
All right. NFL MVP. Who wins the award this year? Is Lamar Jackson repeat? Is it back to Mahomes again? I'll let Matt, you go first. Who you picking?
I went with Drew Brees. I think I've picked that it's going to be kind of hopefully a Cinderella season, sending him off in style. I think if he stays healthy, I think Kamara's going to have a big year, not just rushing, but receiving. Thomas is going to have a big year. And I think the Saints end up being the top seed again, and Brees gets the nod there.
Dennis?
I'm going with Lamar Jackson. I think he's gonna. I think I called him for 800 rushing yards and 30 touchdowns, and I have Baltimore winning the Super Bowl. So I'm gonna go with Lamar Jackson.
Both of us hope that you're wrong about that.
I am going Kyler Murray. I've been talking about it. I think he's primed for it. The gentleman who just commented said the same thing I was about to say. The trend lately has been those second-year QBs winning it, and I think that he is going to bounce back. I'm going to end up, I think, putting them in the playoffs where I had them and I chickened out and pulled them out. I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to keep them in. And I think if Kyler Murray takes the Cardinals to the playoffs like I think he can, he's going to be the MVP award winner.
Is that your burner account pruning?
Is that your burner? No, it is not. I'm not Kevin Duranting it up there on Twitter. I got enough bad takes to just use my own. So, and a fantasy MVP. So how me and Matt did this last year was anybody drafted after the 10th round, a guy that just kind of comes out and balls out to help you win your team. I had 3 options on here. I just kind of added Raquel Armstead. For me, I think it's going to come down to 2 guys like Daniel Jones or Baker Mayfield, who I think both are going after the 10th round right now. And both I think could end up being top QBs. And obviously, for the most part, QBs are going to score you more points than any other position. As much as I want to go with Baker, I think Daniel Jones is going to have a huge season this year. He's got a lot of really good targets around him. If Tate can stay healthy, Sterling Shepard can stay healthy, Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram, and then Saquon Barkley, they improved that line. So Daniel Jones, I think's ADP right now is the end of the 10th, early 11th. I will take Daniel Jones as a guy you can get late in your drafts and end up being a fantasy MVP and league winner for you. Matt, who do you got since I see you've got a name on the list? Which I like, by the way.
That was before you said it had to be after the 10th
He
round.
is actually getting drafted after the 10th round. That's why I said that. He's getting drafted.
94. It says current ADP is 94.
Let's see here. I've got him.
So that would be in the 10th round. I'm going to.
Well, that's fine. 10th round. Daniel Jones is technically being drafted toward it's like the end of the 10th, early 11th. This is ADP, so that's the same thing.
Usually, for me, it's 10th round is a decent barometer. But what I usually like to say is somebody that greatly outperforms their draft position. And a lot of people have been really high on Melvin Gordon and what he might do. And, I said it when we did our AFC predictions that I think Philip Lindsay ends up being the leading rusher for Denver. All he's done is have people down him and put up 1,000-yard seasons. I think he's going to do it again, be a solid RB2, and that's way back where he's being drafted.
Dennis,
I'm going to go with my guy, Preston motherfucking Williams, man.
Hey, I like it.
ADP is an embarrassment.
ADP of 129, man. It doesn't matter if it's Tua. It doesn't matter if it's Rosen. It doesn't matter if it's Fitzpatrick. Dude is going to ball out.
It matters if it's Rosen.
I think Rosen has gotten the shaft. He might not be Bart frickin' Starr, but I think Rosen is, he's a hold.
Yeah.
Got to give the dude a shot. I mean, he'll be back in Arizona after Murray busts.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I like Preston Williams as well. I took him in the 16th round yesterday of my last redraft league, so I'm excited for him. Before we get out of here, I just need to read you guys this sleeper bomb that just dropped. A reporter was just talking to Leonard Fournette saying that he someone familiar with the Jaguars. Leonard Fournette would love to go to the Los Angeles Rams as he is very close friends with Blake Bortles and Jalen Ramsey. That'll do it for us today, guys.
Hey, also, we learned today that after that last segment, we can cross Arizona off the list of places to do our live show.
Yeah. No, I'll be welcome there because I love Kyler Murray. We will be back on Thursday. We're going to do some strategy stuff, a lot of dynasty talk as we're heading closer into the season. Obviously, by Thursday, we'll be a week away from the season. I think that the week of why am I thinking of the week of the NFL season. We'll probably maybe do 3 shows. The plan will just to give our listeners a heads up on everything. So you will still have me and Matt here for the Monday shows. Dennis will join us on Tuesdays, where we're going to try and focus more on waiver wire stuff, as well as recapping the Monday Night Football game. Then me, Matt, and Tony will be here on Thursdays to preview Thursday Night Football and any other news, notes, injury stuff. And then Matt will be joining me and Dennis this year, as we will preview all of the games on Fridays, including the Monday Night Football game. So we're looking forward to it. We're just 10 days away, as Matt mentioned earlier, because I couldn't figure that out, from the NFL season starting. So we are excited. It is almost here, almost time to finally play some fantasy football. Cannot wait. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you guys again on Thursday.